Cybercriminals are working overtime. Last year in the fourth quarter alone, phishing attacks disguised as COVID testing information increased by 521%. Barracuda has identified 13 types of email threats and how cybercriminals use them to steal money from your company or personal information from your employees and customers. Find out about the 13 email threat types and how Barracuda can provide complete email protection for your teams, your customers, and your reputation. Get your free ebook at securityweekly.com/Barracuda. That's securityweekly.com/Barracuda. Endpoint security is designed to protect every device in your fleet, wherever it may be. These days, that can be a lot of different places. Find out how HP Wolf Security uses emerging strategies like application isolation, along with a zero-trust approach and framework to give you a powerful, manageable, usable solution to your growing and increasingly spread-out security challenges. Learn how HP Wolf Security can make a difference across your endpoints at securityweekly.com/HP Wolf.
How have business drivers impacted your organizational risk? Simulate Extended Security Posture Management enables CISOs to know what parts of your cybersecurity portfolio to keep, what to get rid of, and what to buy. Know that your cybersecurity investments are optimized and can reduce cybersecurity risk. With Simulate, you don't assume you are secure, you know. Visit securityweekly.com/simulate to learn more. Welcome back to Business Security Weekly. I am your host, Matt Alderman, joined by Jason Albuquerque and Lee Neely. Security Weekly listeners save $100 on your RSA Conference 2022 full conference pass. RSA Conference will be live in San Francisco June 6th to 9th, 2022. Security Weekly will be there in full force, delivering real-time live coverage and interviewing some of the event's top speakers and sponsors. To register using our discount code, please visit securityweekly.com/RSAC 2022 and use the discount code 52UCyber. We hope to see you there. Do you have a specific guest or topic that you want us to cover on one of the shows? Submit your suggestions for guests by visiting securityweekly.com/guests and completing the form. If you send me an email, we will just redirect you to the form. We review those suggestions often and will reach out to you once reviewed. All right, gentlemen, articles of the week. So, Jason, I started with this Uber CISO lawsuit article because we talk about this a lot: transparency, trust, truth, and it comes out in this lawsuit that these are some of the things that the judge is looking at as part of what actually happened with this whole thing with the CISO and whether it was a bug bounty or a breach and all the craziness that went on behind the scenes with this story.
I mean, it's an amazing story to start reading through now, right? I mean, number one, the CISO is facing 5 felony counts in the indictment. I mean, that's just insanity right there. And then, part of the case is that the judge is making Uber and the ex-CISO work together on e-discovery, pulling documents, unredacting them to see if there was any negligence or hiding of information purposely, changing the narrative or adjusting the narrative to fit really the story that they wanted to put out there. It's just it's kind of a circus, but it's interesting to keep up on, and it just shows you truth, transparency. Make sure you're leading with that trustworthy, perspective. Always, right? Always bring truth to the table because it could come back and bite you. It is in this case.
It is. And what I see in this story a little bit is, did the legal teams interfere and change the narrative? Like, think about this for a second, because I think in defense of the CISO here in this particular case, right? What if he was told to do that? What if he was given guidance by the CEO or legal counsel to make those changes? Now you're going to, one, that helps in his defense. But number two, it opens up the case potentially to other executives. Like, if executives aren't sitting here watching the story going, oh, we better get our act together if this ever happens to us, I don't know what would, Jason, because 5 felony accounts, this is big. Yeah. For anybody to have to go through this kind of lawsuit.
And I mean, at the end of the day, when you look through it, it's actually the ex-CISO, Joe Sullivan, asking for this unredacted information.
Yeah.
So what does he know? right?
Right.
What does he know that he was part of in conversations that he was part of that could implicate other executives? I mean, at the end of it, I would do anything I need to do to make sure I'm not getting indicted.
Mm-hmm.
And if I was ordered by my executive and my board or my legal counsel to do a certain thing, you sit back and you say, take the higher ground, say goodbye and quit, right? Or it's a tough decision.
Oh, yeah.
It's a tough place to be put in, right? And if they did that to the CISO, hopefully the Discovery can bring it out.
Isn't it old? If I'm going down, you're
Because I
going
can see
down
that.
with
I
me?
mean,
Sorry.
right. I mean, at the end of the day, it could be a brutal time and a cutthroat time when you're dealing with this level of chaos within the organization. And
Oh, yeah.
I don't envy the decisions that they had to make.
Not fun.
No, not at all. No, definitely
But
not.
it just shows lead with transparency, be open.
Yep.
It's always the best model.
Open and honest, right?
it.
If you're open and honest up front, then you don't have to worry about hiding anything. Then something like this never happens.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Just saying. This next article is about the CIO, but it's really relevant to the CISO as well as how the CIO can become a board ally. And, I read these stories. I'm like, yeah, you could, this whole thing is directed at the CISO as well. So why is it it's from CIO Drive. So I get it.
Sure.
But I like to pull these articles in because these are all relevant things to discuss at the CISO level as well, Jason. These apply at pretty much any CIO, CTO, and or CISO level, I think, in an organization these days.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. All of these items are items that, as an executive team and a team sitting in front of the board of directors, I mean, I would argue that CFO should be talking about some of these items. And this is an executive level conversation. And that just proves, and these topics prove that the CISO needs that seat at the table, because these are the conversations that should be happening around that table. Is the digital disruption that we're seeing today, the economic uncertainty that we've been through, and what's coming in the future. I mean, look at what's happening in the economy now.
Right.
There's still some long-term economic uncertainty that's happening. Customer shift in behavior. Obviously, look at the last 3 years, right, of what we've been dealing with. There's definitely a shift. And then what we do, right? All of these stats that are out there on the day-to-day, right. These are conversations that need to happen, and you need to be able to have those conversations as a colleague, as a business partner. So sitting down with the board, sitting down with the other executives, and just talking about a strategy and an outcome that you can all align to. I consider that being an ally, right? You formulate a plan together, you march to that plan together, you execute that plan together. That's being an ally.
I mean, how foreign is it to expect, instead of just once in a while for our CIOs and CISOs to be at the table, to be a regular attendance of the meeting?
They need to be, right? I mean, we're at that point now where it's an absolutely have to have, right? And if you're a board that doesn't meet with your CIO and CISO on a regular basis, shame on you. Shame on you right now. So, it's a scenario where you got to change your heart and mind and just start marching toward that. Our businesses run on technology. Every single one. I don't care what type of business you're in, you're running on technology. That comes with innovation, and that comes with security. That comes with compliance. That comes with, protecting your data, protecting your clients, protecting your employees. It's a must have. Never mind some of the items they talk about, the future state things, right? About environmental, social, and governance that's coming down the path, about DEI initiatives that are coming down the path. It's a have to have.
Yeah. And Lee, we've talked about this, with some of the SEC guidance of forcing cybersecurity expertise on the board. Why not get ahead of it now? Why be forced? Why have the SEC regulate this? The reason is because they're not on the boards. But if you're a board and you're thinking about how do I address, have those conversations now. Get yourself ready for when this potential, because I think it's next week. We actually are bringing somebody on that's going to talk about this. They believe it's a high probability that this SEC guidance is going to go through, and it's going to force CISOs onto boards.
I think their projection is right. And the other thing I think about it is they always, drill into a board. You pretty much have one employee, the CEO, But the CEO is the one who should be saying, I need these resources at the table to do my job. I know the board can ask for them, but it's really they both got to be on it, or we're going to miss. Make friends with your CEO. He can get you into the boardroom.
Yeah, for sure. 8 ways to avoid CISO burnout. Anything new or interested in here, Jason? I didn't really see anything because we've covered this before. We've covered this a few times.
I mean, I wouldn't say new. I would say great things to reiterate and remind, right? These are good reminders. And what I would say is the reminders that we don't always think about are, number one, establish your boundaries, right? Come up with that set of rules for yourself. So that way, you know, when you're kind of eking over that edge and you're taking yourself too far. And just be aware of your stress levels. That's a huge one, right? Just know kind of when you're hitting your cusp and you need to take a break, right? Otherwise, you'll just drive yourself into complete burnout. So great reminder. It's always nice to kind of level set and look at all of these things. Make sure you're taking care of yourself. That's the big one, and mental health is key. So take care of yourself so you can take care of your team, so you can take care of your company.
Yeah, for sure. The one I took out of this was the one around setting boundaries, only because I think it's good for everybody to do this, especially when you're in a work from home environment. Set your schedule. Don't work on the opposite sides. Get your weekends back. Like I've consciously been thinking through this. Like I'm trying to do less work on the weekends. I'm trying to do stuff in the normal week when it needs to be done so that you can get that downtime. You can spend the time with friends and family. We actually went golfing yesterday. It was a gorgeous day with my youngest. He's home from college. Like get out and do those things because it's good for your mental health. It's so good for you.
And you can't get that time back at the end of the day, right? That you can't get that time back with your family. You can't get that time back with your friends. And just know as a leader, it's okay to say no, right? I mean, we're so programmed to think we have to do everything right away all the time for everyone that it's okay to say no sometimes, or it's okay to say, you want to know what? That's going to have to wait till next week. That's going to have to wait till next month. That's going to have to wait till next quarter.
One thing my CISO is doing is his predecessor had a lot more people reporting directly to him, a lot more on his, people riding on your coattails. He's restructuring to have fewer people directly reporting to him. His door is totally open. Any of us in the program, from the top to the bottom, can call him up on a thing. But now has less on his plate, and he can do more, not just outside those boundaries, but also he can be with his 4-year-old who's having a birthday and all those other important things in life.
Yep.
We still tease him to make sure he takes the weekend off.
And Lee, that's a strategy, right? Because that's a strategy, and you need to really think through that because consolidating your direct reports, you want to do it in a strategic fashion that doesn't put more on your direct reports, right? Because now you're slimming the lines there. And hopefully you're not putting more on them because of that. It's a law of unintended consequences. So building a nice strategy on how that reporting structure works so that way you're not burning other people out downstream.
It's a two-way conversation. It's not I'm handing you this lump, go do it. It's let's talk. I'm thinking about this. I want to do these things. So you're enrolling and enlisting both parties,
right? And
then everybody's bought in. You're absolutely right. You're going to be successful and you're setting it up to win. Because you don't want the wheels falling off on the freeway.
That's right.
I've been covering more of these Inc. articles, Jason. This one on 4 leadership strategies to help women advance in the technology space. And there's another one at the end. They've been writing some really interesting articles from a leadership communication perspective, and I've been pulling these articles in because I want to get exposure for people from other industries and what are some of the things that other industries focus on and talk about. This is a key one for us, right? As we think about the struggles with the skill set gap, recruiting people in, how can you build a culture and an environment of flexibility to bring women and other people into the industry, right? And we are part of the tech industry is cybersecurity. And I think it's important for us to think about some of these areas when we're out recruiting, like how can I go tap into that workforce
100%.
and leverage that expertise and that skill set to solve some of our skill set challenges.
Oh yeah, 100%. And you know my philosophy: start as early as you possibly can,
Right.
influencing, right? Because bridging the confidence gap was a big one that I pulled out. It's exactly why I go to Girl Scouts and get them their cybersecurity badges every year, right? I make sure I do sessions with the Girl Scouts and they get all 3 badges, one session as a mentor, teach them that they can build that confidence to let them know this is an industry that will, that they can thrive in and they can excel in and be part of, and help build that confidence, help set up the future. Start working with young women as early as you possibly can. Go out there to inner cities and help. It's about the diverse workforce. All of these can align with any type of a group that you want to go in and help influence to bring them into cybersecurity. Especially with the workforce you have too. I mean, number one mentions make sure that remote work isn't stifling equity and equality within the workforce, right? Because some people are set it and forget it, and out of sight, out of mind. Well, don't allow that to happen, right? And then make sure you're doing professional development by design, not by chance. Do it by design. Have career paths for folks. Have training and professional development for folks.
Have
That's by
mentorship
design.
networks for
That's
folks.
it.
I'm trying to get tapped into the local networks here down in Dallas, Fort Worth. I've had some friends that are here like, welcome, like you need to be part of this network and this network and this network.
Right.
It takes time to get connected, but
It does.
but they're great places to help.
There's only one way to solve this problem. That's by getting
Right.
leaders like ourselves and everybody listening involved.
Right.
You have to put some skin in the game.
Don't wait for your career to happen
Exactly.
because somebody else drove it. And I don't care who you are. If you're waiting passively, you're going to be on the sidelines.
Right.
Don't be afraid to say, "Hey, I want to do better." How you got into that seat? How did you get into that seat? But when you're given an opportunity, run with it. Don't drop it on the side of the road because that doesn't work. Like you're saying, own your career path and set the pace. You got to, of course, you got to do a reality check from time to time, but don't delegate that. Get it, keep it on your court. And they're the easiest people that are doing that are easier to work with as well because you can count on them to do things, and you can develop a relationship with them, and you can talk turkey, which is important.
Yeah. I think checking, Lee, like you said, some checkpoints along the way.
Mm-hmm.
When you make decisions, you don't always know they're the right decisions, but sometimes you get pretty lucky. And I think I've been pretty lucky, right? But you've got to make those, you got to take those chances. You got to make those changes. You really have to evaluate for your career what's important, what's not important, where can you continue to move forward. And sometimes that's a change, and you got to take it,
And
because
sometimes and develop those relationships. Well. I mean, I've got
never be afraid to take a risk.
And there's times things that come across my desk, and I'm like, steam is coming out my ear, and I'm like, can you talk me down off the fence? And she will. I've got another one who reports to me, and if I mess up, she says, dude, you screwed up. And we work it, and I fix it. It doesn't happen, but I'm glad she trusts me enough to say, hey, or I'll reach out to her and I'll say, I'm worried. And she says, no, I'm doing this gives me this ordered list, right? I'm like, oh, okay. Trust more. It's cool. It's a two-way street. Trust matters.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Openness and trust. Yes. Transparency, folks. This next article is 3 approaches to onboarding new suppliers. I love having built a third-party vendor management program and thinking about this. I loved option 1 because I remember the dates. Jason, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because back in the day, I remember us sending these questionnaires to our third parties to get them to respond to a set of security controls. And they would send me their policy. I'm like, no, you need to do this. But if they indemnified me of everything, I would have taken their security policy. I would have been fine with the liability approach. This is never going to happen.
Not at all. Not at all. You know, if the limit to liability was zero liability for me, I'm golden, right?
Right.
But at the end of the day, that's not the case. So, you know, you got to understand the liabilities that there. You got to understand that there's a responsibility on both parties. Paperwork matters, and your MSAs matter. All of that legal documentation matters. You have to review it and dig deep, because at the end of the day, if the stuff hits the fan, that's what's coming to the table is that MSA, right? That
Oh yeah,
paperwork.
that contract is what.
Well,
Yeah.
it's gospel. It's gospel at that point. So make sure you're doing that diligence up front. You know, I've been lucky. I've had some really great teams that number one do vendor management as a whole, the onboarding piece, and then the security portions of it snap into that overall vendor management program. And you have the security team reviewing, you have compliance teams reviewing, really going through that, and then working tightly with your legal team on it as well. If you're not going through that diligence, start influencing to get some type of vendor risk management on board at your organization.
Yep.
If you're doing it as a path,
you got to get your supply chain or contract analyst on board with your cyber provisions being in every damn contract. And you need, here I go again, you need a relationship with that. First started doing that, they were like Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. Then once we got through the communication, they understood that we actually were working together. It's like when something doesn't jive or a vendor says, what the heck? They come to us and we work it through.
Right.
And we got more wins than loses there. Yeah. But getting through that process the first time was a little rough. And as turnover happens, you may have to retake some of that ground because people forget. Yeah, it's okay. Just be patient and keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jason, do you do much with certifications? I'm thinking SOC 2, not necessarily PCI and ISO. Are those relevant approaches here as well? Because he doesn't talk about SOC 2 Type 2 certifications and other things in here. He talks more about PCI, DSS, and ISO 27.
Yeah, I'm more on the service side of the aisle, so the SOC 2 Type 2s are definitely important for me. They're definitely important for clients, right? They're looking for SOC 2 Type 2 certifications. I'm really lucky. Our sister company is a CPA firm, one of the largest CPA firms on the East Coast, privately held, and they have an entire audit team that does SOC 2 Type 2 as a practice. So being able to collaborate with them is extremely important. But that's an important piece to this, right? If you're delivering a service, the expectation is that you're going to have a SOC 2 Type 2 to be able to hand to us, and we're going to review them for the deficiencies, and hopefully you have a roadmap to remediation for those deficiencies.
Yeah, awesome. Next article, stop rambling in meetings and start getting your message across. This is a fun article to read because when I read an article like this, I start thinking, am I the guy rambling in the meeting or aren't I?
I was just gonna say, Matt, that's really tough for podcast hosts who sit here and yak to the listener all day, right? I mean, it flies in the face of what we do. We just like to talk. But no, I get, this is part of the reason why I've started to do a lot of like 15-minute meetings or half-hour meetings. So a meeting that I would traditionally make a half an hour, I'm making 15 minutes. A meeting that I would traditionally make an hour, I'm making a half an hour. Mm-hmm. So that way we're forced to get to the point, right? Mm-hmm. It's all about value add in our day. And I know that 1 hour meeting is probably going to be at least 20 minutes of fluff. So you know what? Make it 30 minutes and have everybody get to the point. But at the same time, there's a balance because you want to be able to build those relationships with people. And if you're doing things like that, make sure that you have meetings where you can have sidebar conversations or ask people to stay on. So many like 30-minute meetings. I'm like, hey, this person, stay on for an extra 10 minutes. And some of it's like, hey, did you have a good weekend? I haven't seen you in a week. I haven't seen you in 2 weeks.
And
just making sure you're keeping that
relationship. Through the article, as I find myself rambling in meetings, like you said, as a podcast host. But there were two things that came to mind, one of which really isn't practical anymore. The first being that when you do an agenda. Don't do an agendaless meeting, but try putting time durations on the different parts. You might find it's very illuminating, even if you get them wrong. The second thing that a friend of mine taught me once, which doesn't work in our modern is to have what he calls standing meetings. No, that doesn't mean the meeting every Thursday at 2. It means you're standing up. So you're not comfortable sitting in your chair, lying around while you pontificate for, well, I'll stop there. But
Right. Now, as podcast hosts, I also want to make sure all my co-hosts have equal time. So I do try to spread
Yeah.
the wealth. To me, the one I took out of this is practice compressing your thoughts, because I will sit in a meeting and people will just ramble when all they needed to do is list like 3 things and they were done.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
do start thinking about how do you compress your thoughts down into a set of 2 or 3 bullet items that make it really easy to get your message across, and you're done. We were on an exec call about a month ago or something like that. They're like, you got 5 minutes left, and three of the executives finished their points in less than 5 minutes because we knew exactly what we wanted to get across. It was bing, bing, bing. Here's what we're working on, and 3 of us got through that in 5 minutes, and it was like, oh, I guess we can get through all this stuff in this hour-long meeting.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, it's that Scrum type mentality, right? Here's what I accomplished, right? Here's what I have coming up, and hey, by the way, here are some roadblocks that I need help with. Boom, boom, boom. Get it done.
Prep calls are always 30 minutes, and I probably only take 15 to 20. And during the podcast, I always build in pauses because you want time for others to be able to speak.
Thank you very much, and you are excellent at that.
Lee,
I was just thinking, don't stop to just fill the time either. Let's move on. And so, in that note, what's next, Matt?
Right. Yep. Last one. 5 biggest predictors of employee turnover during the Great Resignation. Toxic corporate culture. Really? You think?
Who would have thunk? Yeah, I think that was something that affected employee turnover before the pandemic, to be honest with you.
It's true. But even more so now, I think, because people are like, wait a minute. I don't have to go back into that work environment. I don't have to. I can go anywhere. Like, if you don't like it, you can find work elsewhere. My son just changed jobs because he wasn't, he's home for the summer, right? He doesn't want to like kill himself, 40 hours, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Like, he can have some fun. He can have some flexibility. He just got out of school, right? He can go anywhere and get a job.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a good list. It's a lot of things we know affects employee turnover. I sit back and I say, I know I've seen this on a list before about it, but it always blows my mind. High levels of innovation equals employee turnover. And every time I see that, I'm like, are we at a point now where we realize business innovates? It's just, that's where we're at.
With what's going on, how do you not innovate? You don't survive.
It's it. So that, to me, that was the biggest response. I mean, I think it was one of the top 5 of reasons why there's high employee turnover. Innovation.
I'm thinking that I still have a painful memory from many years ago where I shut down somebody innovating. They were suggesting the same thing we tried 17 times, and I, instead of saying let's run this to ground, we laughed at him, and that was just painfully bad. I guess it was a lesson I needed to learn. So I thank him for that opportunity. I regret that we lost him, but it's how do you find the win in even the dumbest idea so that they keep coming? Because I don't know how many dumb ideas I've thrown in the trash that come up with one gem, and why shouldn't everybody be entitled to that?
Yeah, how it goes.
And HR departments' failure to recognize performance and poor response to COVID-19 are also big on the list. And I know a lot of HR departments.
I'm hesitant
to
name performance issues solely on HR, because if the management doesn't recognize it, HR is not going to get it, or the teammates. And the pandemic thing. Well, there's lots to go around. I focus less on that because I know some people got really pissed off by the response, but performance that predates COVID. Recognition for doing, and it's easy to do.
It does. Yep. It is. You got to have a process in place. You got to make
Mhm.
sure it's
Yeah.
done. And
And I think
HR
that's
should
where
own the process.
HR
But
comes in, right? That's where HR comes in. They
Yeah.
build the structure to empower the leaders to be able to have a good a good ability to recognize performance and methods to be able to either give kudos company wide or whatever the case may be. But they create that company culture and the structure to be able
Yeah.
to do that.
But there's some things you can
again,
do even
it's
if
a
you can't
responsibility of all leaders
get
and
HR on board
to
to
collaborate and make
recognize
sure we're doing
performance and achievement that as a leader might cost you a little out of your pocket, but that the long-term cost gain is way
Mhm.
higher. So I'm saying don't just rely on HR. And if HR isn't up there, call them to task on it.
100%.
Absolutely. But don't stop because they aren't.
Mhm.
Right. Gentlemen, always a pleasure. Lee, thank you for filling in today. Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening. We'll see you next week on Business Security Weekly.